In today's fast-paced real estate landscape, success demands more than surface-level expertise. It requires insight, adaptability, proven strategies, discipline, and the ability to take risk. The Agent Brew podcast blends candid conversations with wisdom from industry leaders who've walked the path before you. Think of us as your strategic pit stop to fuel your real estate journey. From the crossroads of the world in the heart of Times Square, welcome to a special edition of Agent Brew. Business structures decoded. You've mastered selling properties, but have you optimized your business structure? I'm your host, Eric Zollinger of RLTYco, and I've been with the company now several months, and I must say there's a lot of questions that agents have that, unfortunately, I'm not an attorney and I'm not an accountant. So due to liability reasons, I'm not allowed to answer many of those questions, but I've kept track of them all. And there is somebody, part of RLTYco, that can answer the questions because he is an attorney. It is our great honor and privilege to have one of RLTYco's founders on today, Daniel Kennedy, who is president and co-founder of RLTYco and managing partner of Kennedy Luce, LLC. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Happy to hop on.
We're happy to have you be in a room adjacent and be part of Agent Brew.
Absolutely. Excited for it.
So, we have a lot of agents that just are very confused. And I have to admit, from time to time, I am too, because different things come up. And when I got serious about real estate and I had my own firm, I, of course, had an S Corp. My accountant took care of everything. It also cost me a fortune to maintain and set up. But I'm wondering if you can help shed light and kind of demystify everything that goes on as far as realty legal is concerned. And let's start first with your story. If you can give us your elevator pitch, your RLTYco story, and also how this second part came to be, RLTYco Legal.
Yeah, Eric. I mean, I'm an attorney by trade. I've been a practicing attorney for almost 25 years. In that span, I've done everything from, litigation matters to real estate transactions to property tax appeals, really the whole gamut. About 5 years ago, my co-founder and I, Briggs Elwell, decided to start RLTYco because we really saw through working with a lot of agents the different pain points that agents had. So we originally started with our capital division, which is commission funding. And since then, based on feedback from agents all over the country, we've built out some other services. One of those is Realty Legal.
That's really great that you had the vision well in advance of acting on it. So it started with Realty Capital. Was legal the next step? And was it just a natural progression, or was this something that took a lot of work to put into place?
It took a lot of work to put into place. To answer your first question, both legal and tax services rolled out at about the same time. And with legal, we went back and forth for a long time trying to find the right partner for us to work with. And luckily, we were able to forge a partnership with LegalZoom, the number one provider of online legal services in the world, quite frankly.
It's been said some people don't like LegalZoom because they feel it's too impersonal, right? As an attorney, I guess it's all the same process. If you're setting up an LLC or an S Corp or a will for that matter, it's all the same steps. It's just somebody else is doing it and they're able to streamline it and not cost as much money.
Correct. So if an individual came in to meet with one of the lawyers that work for me at my law firm, you'd sit down with someone, go over how an LLC, for instance, works. And before you end up finished, you're probably going to spend $1,500 to $2,500. Our partnership with LegalZoom allows us our most inexpensive package is actually free. You just pay the state filing fee. So if I was going to form in a certain state, I might have to pay, $80 or $90, and that's all I have to pay. So it's really great for folks because, listen, not everybody has $2,000 to spend on an LLC.
Right. I mean, I do have to admit, the first time around and even the second time around creating an LLC, I thought I had to, go through all the proper steps, have my accountant do this, do that. by the third time, it's almost like a third child. You're like, oh, wait, no, why am I spending all the time? It's easy. You just, why spend all that extra money? As Scott Kogo said, he goes, I could spend $1,500 to set up this new LLC with my attorney, or I'm going to come to you guys and save a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's especially true. The vast majority of agents are going to be what we call a single member LLC, meaning it's just them owning the company. In those situations, it's a lot easier to form and there's a lot less red tape as opposed to, let's say you have, you're starting a restaurant with 5 partners and you have to decide who has what percentage, who's in charge of what role. So it really, we feel like we've created in this partnership the perfect stop for a real estate agent.
Fantastic. So, we're doing this Business Structures Decoded because I see RLTYco provides a real service to real estate agents because we are that one-stop shop. We're that information center for people to go. And Agent Brew has really been a vehicle where we're providing relevant information that people can then actively go to those insights and use them for their own business and empower and get financial flexibility. This is really great. People will be able to come back to this episode and rewatch, because what I'd like you to do now is let's talk about all the differences. We have an LLC, we have an S Corp, sole proprietorship. If we can just take the macro look, just so that those first-time agents out there that are somewhat new to the business and really don't understand, you have yourself as an independent contractor that is a 1099. You would then do a Schedule C, correct, in your taxes?
Yeah, if you didn't have any sort of a legal structure, then on your personal tax return, the Schedule C would list out, your 1099 income and then any expenses that you're able to try to deduct. Then now that's really what's called being a sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship just means that you're out there operating. Sometimes you'll have a trade name you can register with the county clerks. So you could go as a different name, but essentially it's you personally selling real estate.
Got it. Okay. And then, why I wanted to start there, I have a very good friend that's like, oh, I would never start an LLC because it's just wasted money. There's no need to protect my own personal assets. So with that sole proprietorship, you are open to lots of liability, correct? There's no protection when you have a sole.
There's absolutely no protection. And if you were to get sued, for instance, which agents might think, oh, that's not going to happen, but we live in a very litigious world, the person suing would be able to go after any of the agent's assets. So the home they're in, a car they have, it's not limited to just the assets of the LLC, if you had an LLC.
Got it. And so when you're a sole proprietorship, it's basically, there's nothing fancy about it. There's nothing official. It is just, you are completely naked to the world and vulnerable for just about anything, correct? Because you're not really set up as a company. You're not set up as a person. It's just out there. And
correct. You have absolutely no liability shield whatsoever.
And you're not set up even at a bank. You're just yourself. If you
Correct.
want to take that next step, the next step would be then an LLC, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 main. There's more than 3, but the 3 main types of entities that you see are what's called a C corporation. And that the C is just a designation with the IRS after you form a corporation. That is never going to be applicable to a real estate agent. C corps are generally public companies in very large companies with, significant amounts of institutional investors and whatnot. So C corp is that's out. The other sort of a corporation is an S corporation. That's, again, you're forming a corporation and then you're filing with the IRS a designation to be treated as an S corp. An S corp is similar to an LLC, but requires a lot more red tape in terms of annual and sometimes quarterly filings. You're supposed to hold, quarterly meetings and keep minutes and all that sort of stuff that really is not necessary at all. The LLC, a limited liability company, came out, I don't know what state it started in, but it's now in all 50 states because there's a unified act surrounding it. And it's increased in popularity in the last 25, 30 years. And the reason for it is it's a very, very flexible sort of entity. So you don't have to jump through all the hoops that would be associated with a corporation. So you can, if you're operating by yourself, you can simply sign up for what's called a single member LLC, and it's just you own 100%. And then the agent has that shield around them to protect against a lot of things. And I should point out, it's not just, liability, it's professional credibility. If you have your own company, what I see with real estate agents is it really helps on the tax side because it allows you to have everything related to your real estate business in one spot, meaning you have one bank account and you can see money that's come in and you can see money that's come out. And then at the end of the year, if you're not using a bookkeeping service or software, it's a lot easier to go through and say, okay, here's whatever all my expenses were for January, February, instead of having everything sort of commingled together where you're trying to figure out, oh, what was business, what wasn't. It just makes your life, a lot easier. So we highly recommend it for real estate agents. And we think without question, it is the preferred legal entity to set up if you're a real estate agent.
Got it. So, okay. In um, kind of summary, you have a limited liability company, an LLC, and then you also have an S corp. Now, I know a lot of agents say, "Oh, well, no, I've always been told to make sure that I set up the S corp," and I think there's a lot of misnomers or really misunderstanding out there because as I've come to understand with working with you, is that no, there's different ways that it's stipulated and set up. An S corp, just by itself, you may not need to do that extra filing, correct? Because there's a way, if you're doing a limited liability company, an LLC, to then file that LLC as an S corp, correct?
That's correct. It is confusing. The designations of partnership, S filing, any of that are really all IRS designations. So when you go to once you start an LLC, you'd also need to get an EIN, which is your federal identification number. On that form, which is called an SS4, they're going to ask you, how do you want to be taxed? And if you were a typical, business where there's 3 partners, you might check partnership. But another one of the elections is to be taxed as an S corp. And there are a lot of advantages to that. You don't have to do it, but it mainly can help you save on self-employment taxes. So that's the real benefit of that. And it's something we certainly recommend that agents do. So LLC formed, taxed as an S corp.
As an S corp.
Yep.
Awesome. This is really great. So then from there, that limited liability company allows you complete separation from personal and business. So nobody can go after your personal assets if you happen to be sued, correct?
That's correct.
You can then save potentially on your self-employment tax, which could be up to, I believe, $12,000 to $15,000 for every $100,000 of income?
Almost. I mean, it obviously depends on everybody's individual situation with what other deductions and exemptions you might have. But yeah, I mean, the way we see agents doing it is they set up the LLC, they have it taxed as an S corp, and then you project what you think you're going to make in that year. I know not easy with real estate agents, but you pay yourself a salary from the LLC. And what that enables you to do is not pay self-employment taxes on that portion of the money. So we see in the first, if you have an agent that's making $100,000, yeah, it's, $7,500 to up to about $12,000 they can save by avoiding those self-employment taxes. And, in my view, why pay taxes that you don't have to pay? Because if you worked as a W-2 worker at a company, or if agents were considered employees, they wouldn't be paying any of that. So it's really a penalty on real estate agents because they're 1099 workers.
So really, LLC, you really are the CEO of your own company because you are the head of your own company, which is, I always laugh because I start all the presentations asking how many CEOs are out there, how many heads of development and business development. Uh, and people just look at you like, what? I don't quite get it. But this is just such business 101. I'm surprised more people haven't taken advantage over the years.
Well, it absolutely is, Eric, and we see it. It varies really by geographical area. So we'll see in certain states and cities, a lot of agents will operate out of their own LLC. In other areas, it's just not as popular, and I think it's largely an education thing, meaning people are been scared into thinking, "Oh, geez, this is going to cost me thousands of dollars a year to have this set up." When in reality, the costs of forming it and keeping it going pale in comparison to the advantages.
Right. So, okay, let's look at this in another way. LLCs happen all the time. You look at all the new developments. Every new building, it has its own LLC, its own entity. So when you're setting up a real estate team per se, um, the team heads are going to have their own LLC, correct? And then every team member under them should also have their LLC being paid out uh, personally in that individual way.
Correct. Whether you're a large commercial team in New York City or you're just a team member in Albuquerque selling residential real estate, you all should have an LLC. The benefits just far outweigh any hassle or downside.
And if everybody has their LLC, they then could potentially be qualified to get healthcare with Solo and then save even more money with the Solo Health Collective.
Correct. That's another one of our partnerships, and it's accurate that you have to have an LLC to be able to join their group.
Well, what's interesting is that you always look at insurance and it's always like employer based, correct? That's kind of the terminology. And when we had Tom Morrissey of Solo on last week, it was so fascinating because he said, really we're underwriting people's companies. We're not underwriting, a single person. And it just, that light bulb went off to say, oh, exactly, because you are only talking to heads of companies, technically.
Correct. And
Yeah.
that's a pooled insurance plan that enables them to offer, if the person qualifies, much better rates and plans that are on the open market. So again, that's where at RealtyCo, we saw a need for agents and health insurance. So we opened up a partnership with Solo and one with United Healthcare to try to provide for the agents and answer a lot of the questions that agents have.
I mean, setting up that LLC or that separate entity is really the first step any agent should take once they get serious. Well, really, any American citizen that pays taxes should be their first step if they're a gig worker or any kind of business, right? Because you're setting it up to partition that specific business. Now, I guess some people, if you're an actor, it could also be dance and other areas. With this LLC, is it all encompassing? Could you just put anything in this where you're making money, or does it have to be very specific?
That's the beauty of the LLC. It's a very flexible entity, as I mentioned. So yes, you could use the LLC if you had, if you were a real estate agent, but you're also driving for Uber on the weekends. You could flow it all through the one LLC. People that have, one caveat to that is, people that have successful other businesses generally create a second LLC just because, again, if you're combining the two into one LLC, you don't have liability protection as to the other business. So someone suing you could go after both income streams. So that's where you'll see a lot of, like, if you look at, a real estate development, the real estate developer has hundreds of LLCs for each building or project they're
Right.
working on, just because you don't want to commingle those funds.
So would you recommend that husband and wives um, have separate LLCs?
It's really up to the individual. If you have, if you're together, more than one member of the LLC, then generally the LLC is going to have to file its own tax return. If you're just a single member LLC, that income is still going to flow to your personal tax return. So there is a bit of an additional cost to being a multi-member LLC because you have that other federal tax return that needs to be filed.
Got it. But if you're, say, a husband and wife team and working together, that might be an option.
Yeah, we see that all the time. Listen, brokerages also operate differently. So it depends on how they form the team, whether you're the head agent's responsible in some way for the agents working on their team. So it's dependent, but we're here to answer any questions. And with our partnership with LegalZoom, you can go right on our website. You fill out it's easy to use. You fill out your name, the name of the LLC that you want to use, and they take over the process.
You bring up a very good point, because I have to say one of the biggest hurdles I've found since joining RLTYco and trying to promote Realty Legal as much as possible is that I love real estate agents. I think we're the best group of people in the world. We just don't know how to adopt things very quickly. And if it's personal for our personal life or business, and if it takes more than 30 seconds or 15 seconds to focus, we're just like, I'll do that later. But it really is, because I just went through the process yesterday to make sure it all worked. You'll see here, this is a little three-tiered system. If you go to realtyco.com and go to legal, all you have to do is scroll down a little bit. Don't double click yet, just scroll down, and you'll find that there are these 3 sets of prices. Basically, and this is for setting up your LLC, there's 3 plans. You have a basic, a pro, and a premium. The basic, as Dan alluded to earlier, is $0. Basically, you're just paying for the state filing fees. And the basic package includes articles of organization, you have your LLC checklist, and then several other items that they go through. The Pro is $249. And what's important about this is that it does come with your EIN, your federal EIN, as you can tell, I don't have my glasses on right now. You're looking at the operating agreement, and then you also get 1 year of e-signatures and whatnot through LegalZoom. But what I love is that you also have the consultation with a small business organizer. So many times people come to me and they're like, well, you know what? I just don't want to start it because I don't know if it's right or not. And Dan, you just answered all the questions. It's the LLC that is the single person that you're going to elect then as the S Corp. You can do either $249, you'll get that consultation with a small business person, or the premium, which is $299, and that does give you access to an attorney that can answer any of your questions.
Yeah, and with the attorney, they have a network of attorneys local to your area, wherever you might be in the United States, that can answer questions. And I believe it's up to a 30-minute consultation. So you can pack a lot of questions in 30 minutes.
You really can. And from what this says, you have 30 days of unlimited 30-minute consultations for new information. So really, there's no guesswork here, everybody. This is, you just have to put a little bit of time in and say you're going to get it done. Feel free, give me a call. If you have questions that you're like, I'm not quite sure, send them to us. If it's a legal question, I can't answer it, but I can get Dan to at least advise on. And, because this is just so important for everybody to have. If you don't, you really shouldn't wait. And this should be the first order of business before the end of June. What I will say is this, because believe it or not, I was at the top 25 lunch at Corcoran 2 weeks ago. And I was sitting next to an agent who has been around the business almost as long as I have. She's been around, I think, 23 years. She's an agent that she still lives in Connecticut. And she's like, oh, I feel so bad. I've been talking about this for over a decade, but my accountant says one thing, my attorney says another. They're just like, the costs and the deductions kind of outweigh each other, or they make it all equal. But when you're talking about liability in your personal assets, that's not legal, right? Because you are putting too many eggs in one basket that you could potentially lose that basket.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the vast majority of the time, an agent gets sued, if it's in the course of their work, then the brokerage generally provides assistance. But we've seen plenty of cases. For instance, we had someone that set up an LLC through us and then a couple months later got sued along with the seller of a house because the allegation from the buyer was that they didn't disclose certain defects with the property. And so, yeah, the agent just gets thrown in as one of the parties. And fortunately for this person, they had to sue the LLC and not her individually. So it does happen.
Yes, it's a little bit of paperwork, but ultimately, once it's set up, it just makes things so much easier. And as Tony Robbins always said, it's all about the mindset, right? When you set yourself up for success, you feel like a success. You're doing the necessary steps to, really differentiate yourself. So that's what we want to do here with RealtyCo is help you empower your business by setting it up for success in the right way. So um, many
Absolutely.
agents have said, I'm laughing here because it says, does self-employment savings cancel out the cost of the entity? No, not if you're doing it with us, right? Because yes, if you're doing it through a normal attorney or accountant, it could be $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. But with us, you're only paying for the um, state filing fees, or that 250 or 299. So it really is a fantastic savings.
Yeah, the short answer is in 99% of cases, you're going to save exponentially more in self-employment taxes than you're paying to set up the entity.
And just a word of advice, because I know with my accountant, I never had to think of this. They just would send the extension or the filing each year for that LLC. If you're doing it through LegalZoom, you would just go through them to do that, correct?
Yeah, the annual report, they have a program very inexpensive where if you want to not have that to worry about, they can just do it for you.
Great. Now with LegalZoom, we've greatly expanded those services recently.
Correct. We basically wanted to figure out when we first started, we just had LLCs, and we realized that a lot of the agents wanted a little more. So we haven't opened up to LegalZoom's entire suite of services because a lot are not applicable to real estate agents. But we are offering estate planning, so a simple will, a trust.
Actually, for couples too, I saw it's not just individuals, but for couples, and it was rather robust as far as all of the offerings. I was also shocked to see that trademark registration.
Yeah, I mean, we've come across certain agents that in their area, want to be able to trademark a slogan they're using, their name, anything like that they're regularly using, and we found a fairly inexpensive way to get a trademark so that that somebody can't come in, you know, the town over from you and start using the same verbiage.
That's great. So from there, um, let's talk about realty uh, tax, because we've talked about setting yourself up for success to take those deductions, but how do you know what those deductions are? So I'm curious to know if you're a sole proprietor versus an LLC or S corp, is it all the same deductions? I mean, do they go across? Is it all the same file folders and whatnot, or does it really change with the um, entity type?
It doesn't change the type of deductions available for the most part. But what it does is it greatly decreases your risk of an audit, because you're doing everything in one spot. Everything's coming out of the LLC bank account. You're not struggling to find, receipts or whatever it might be. So we find that by doing it, I mean, you're reducing your audit risk down very, very low. And also, it's quite frankly a lot easier. then some people have, expenses they could claim for their business coming out of, 3 different bank accounts. They don't know what they can I take a home office exemption? What can I do? So we find that if we were giving advice to an agent, it would be set up an LLC through us. Then we have a partnership with several accounting firms, get a bookkeeping service so that monthly you just have to enter in your information. So you're not scrambling come April of the next year, and use them for tax filing as well. We have a partnership with Block Advisors, which is sort of the more bespoke division of H&R Block, where we're able to offer tax filings and bookkeeping for very, very reasonable rates. We have options where somebody can do it themselves if they want through the website, or can use an actual tax accountant, and the prices are as low as $170 to use that account.
I love this service. It's really great because it's for that small business entrepreneur that really allows you that a la carte or tiered options of how involved do you want them to be, or how involved do you want to be in all of the back of house setup and implementation. So it's really great. I would say with that, it is a little bit more digging. You just go to our website to Realty Tax and you go down how the site is set up, just for those of you inquiring, because I was trying to do just the bookkeeping section alone. But what they're going to do, they're going to want you to contact them and actually schedule a time to meet with them. So just know that that's out there, and just be prepared that when you want to go through and get that bookkeeping system, is that they want to meet with you to set you up for success right away and not just let it, fall by the wayside. So it really is a good service. A lot of their tax pros too, with the small business, they have an average of 14 years experience doing small companies.
Yeah, and you can. The neat thing about it, Eric, is that you can do it, virtually, or they'll send you to an office in your area. And there's so many offices that I've yet to find a place in the country where one of our agents lives that doesn't have an available H&R Block or Block Advisors office.
And what I thought was great is that you can get 10% off the bookkeeping program for life.
Yeah.
And it's all through an exclusive offer with them. And as far as some of the savings, you can, if you meet with a tax professional from Block Advisors in person or online, it was starting at $220, but it's now $170 plus $75 per state with a RLTYco discount. And that's tax expertise up to 30% less than a typical accountant.
Absolutely. We tried to find a service that aligned with our average agent. We also have, we have plenty of agents we work with that are making, $1 million a year, and their GCI's, 1 to 3 million. We also have some other brick and mortar, I could say, accounting firms we could send someone to if they have much more complex situations.
In that situation, you're talking about a major sales and marketing company per se, right? It's not just, this is where they're going to have a lot of 1099s being paid out. They're having, it's a much more complex, bigger, robust business, because they're just doing the kind of scaling and volume of business that requires more than just 1 or 2 people trying to, put things into a little spreadsheet.
Yeah. So but the point is, we have a service for everybody out there. So
whether you're big or small, RLTYco can help you.
One question that does come up a lot, Eric, with regards to the LLC, certain brokerages in certain states prefer to pay the agent individually or as the agent's licensed. That's completely fine. In that case, if the agent's paid their commissions into, let's say, a personal bank account, it's completely fine. We just have the agent immediately transfer that money into their LLC bank account. So it's the same thing. It does not matter that the 1099 is going to be in an individual name, or if they won't pay directly, you just do that simple transfer.
So let me ask you this, because we're in the middle of the year now. And so many people, I know you out there, you're going to say, oh, I'm just going to wait till the first of the year. Don't wait. Do it now, right? Because even though you've been paid for the first half of the year through your sole proprietorship or your actual name, your social security number, it's very easy to get that switched over, correct? And once it's completely filed, then you can start to have income coming through there. Can you like backdate it and put income before or no? Is it?
No, you can't backdate it, but there's really a lot of people do tend to wait until the first of the following year. I generally have always advised clients that, listen, if you're on December 28th, then wait to the first, but if you're in the middle of the year like this, or really anywhere in the first 3 fiscal quarters, the advantages outweigh, any additional fees that you might have to pay.
And why not just get started in doing it the right way, right? You practice by doing things the correct way. I guess you can also practice doing it the wrong way, but why not just get started today the right way, right? And
Correct. Absolutely.
So many things just start going better when things are set up the right way. So you've heard it here first, everybody. Agent Brew is happy to help you get your LLC signed up. Also your small business with Block Advisors or one of our other cross-country organizations. Anything else, Dan, that you want to let people know?
No, I mean, we do have a couple of additional divisions that we're rolling out to help agents. So stay tuned, and we look forward to continuing to be agent first and helping agents.
Is there anything that you that an agent would be afraid of for doing this in your mind? Can you think of anything that would stop them from doing this?
No, I mean, the only thing stopping them is some people are afraid of change, so, but there's no reason why every agent in the country shouldn't be doing this and following these steps.
Great. Well, we are here to help you do that every step of the way. I'm Eric Zollinger, your host of Agent Brew, with Dan Kennedy, our co-founder and president. We always like to end every episode with a positive quote. And so this week's quote: someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. So someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. Warren Buffett said that.
Wow.
So you can sit under that LLC tree next season, but you got to plant it today, right?
I like that. Good job, Eric. And it was a pleasure being on.
You'll have to come back if we have more questions. But this has been another episode of Agent Brew. Thank you for coming and watching. Tune in for next week's episode where we return to the agent journey. I'm Eric Zollinger, reminding you it's a great day for real estate. The Agent Brew podcast is brought to you by RLTYco. RLTYco is your partner in real estate, bringing you game-changing benefits and services to empower your business. Visit RLTYco.com for more information.